Hello, Terra Nova. I wanted to take just a minute before we get into the teaching today to ask Pastor Ed a few questions about an upcoming trip that he's taking. As you may have heard, Pastor Ed is taking some additional time off this summer. Some of that is for rest and relaxation, just a vacation time. But in addition to that, he's taking some additional time where he'll be using that as an opportunity to do some training with pastors in another country where there is just not much training available. And so I thought we would just take a few minutes to get a sense from Pastor Ed about that trip and get a few details on it. Ed, could you just give us a sense of how this opportunity came your way to visit India to do some training of pastors there?
Sure. It actually happened because of something that came out through the community here at Terra, where there was a family who has associations back in India, and the story was published by them as a prayer request of a Christian man who was arrested. His pastor went to the prison to speak up on his behalf, and they arrested and beat the pastor as well, and it just kept scaling like that. And I felt like in my heart God was saying to me, you need to be helping them. You guys know these people, at least the ones here at Terra, and you're connected to them. What can you do? So I went to the family and said, what can be done? And they thought about it for a little bit, and they said, we used to have a person or people would come over and do some training for the pastors, and just this year that stopped. So it seemed a pretty good opportunity that fit things I've done here and can do. And so we're going to be going over to meet with those pastors.
All right, so primarily you're working with pastors in India who haven't had much of an opportunity to be trained in the Bible, in theology, and they'll be coming together to do almost like a mini seminary in a sense for a couple of weeks. Is that kind of where we're headed with this? You know,
it'd be great if they could even get together to do that. The reality is I'll be taken to multiple locations in rural areas to meet, because assembling like that would draw too much attention in a very persecuted area. We don't want to name the place that we're going to. India, to give perspective, is a federal union of 28 states. About 2.1 billion people are there. And this is one of the most populated states and one of the most persecuted states.
Talk about the spiritual climate of India a little bit more.
So India's got an apostolic history where Thomas the Doubter goes and starts multiple churches there. And then, of course, as Protestants, we are very aware of the modern missionary movement and William Carey going over and translating the Bible into Bengali. But in today's world, while India will present itself as a very pluralistic society of Hindu, Muslim, and Christian, the reality is there is a lot of persecution. The place where we're visiting had registered a 1.5-year period where over 500 days an outside group had recorded 1,000 attacks against Christians. That's everything ranging from interruptions of service by militants to kidnapping and beating and jailing of people.
So in addition to you working with pastors there, what other areas will you be serving while you're in India?
Yeah, the Christians there have a very unique ministry that will, I think, resonate with things that we're familiar with at Terra Nova. They minister to temple prostitutes that are part of a Hindu structure of prostitution from the time they're very young girls. And the Hindus will believe that this is part of a reincarnation system, that somehow they earned being temple prostitutes, and it's honoring them and actually elevating them out of their past bad karma. The Christians will preach the gospel of Christ and liberty to them, and these women come out. Now they're rejected by all the Hindus. They've done a great offense to them. They're women who are looked down upon in their society. So the Christian community has taken upon themselves to really try to educate them, to help them have a trade, and to take care of their children, because most of them have children who are looked down upon in society as well.
So obviously we want to be praying for Ed as he leaves on this trip. In addition to that, we'd like to invite you into supporting this trip financially. And the way that you can do that by helping to offset some of the travel expenses is by logging into your city account, looking for the Giving tab on the side column, and then look for the drop-down menu where there's different funds to choose from, and you can choose to give specifically to this India trip. And that'll be 100% tax deductible, and you'll be able to make a donation that goes directly to this. The other way to do that is to mail a check directly to our offices at the address that you see on the screen. As Pastor Ed leaves on this trip in another week or two, if you could be praying along with us specifically that if God is opening up some new doors for Terra Nova to have a new avenue of service and ministry, gospel proclamation throughout the world, that this might be a way that we could figure out, is this a place that God is calling us to as a church to serve? So pray for that as Ed is there. Follow along updates on Facebook and be prayerfully considering whether or not this is something that God is calling us to for a long-term benefit.